What is going on, college basketball fans? A few days ago, the transfer portal officially ended for college basketball, and I want to give you guys my biggest winners of the transfer portal. Let me know down below in the comment section who your biggest winner is, and let me know if you guys want to see my biggest losers of the transfer portal here in a couple of days. Subscribe if you guys are new, hit that like button if you guys enjoy, and let's go. All right, my number one winner of the transfer portal in college basketball is, of course, the Arkansas Razorbacks. I mean, Eric Musselman, ever since he has been the head coach of Arkansas and the transfer portal became a thing, I mean, he has been on it, but he has taken it to another level this season. He has picked up a lot of really good players, really reloaded this roster, and I think Arkansas is one of the favorites to win the national championship next season with these transfers that they brought in. So first, they brought in Tremont Mark, the transfer out of Houston, a two-way player, a guy who can play the 2 or the 3 position, shoot the 3 ball, play really good defense. I think Tremont Mark is going to be a stud for Arkansas. They also picked up Ellis, the transfer out of Louisville, a guy who can average 17, 18 points per game. He can play the 1 or the 2. Super solid pickup and was pretty much the only bright spot on that Louisville team that was really bad last season. They also picked up Jeremiah Davenport, the transfer out of Cincinnati, a forward who can shoot the ball lights out and play some really good defense. That is a Eric Musselman type of guy, and if you can catch on to the trend, they've added a lot of shooting to this Arkansas team, and it was much needed. They also added Khalif Battle, another really good shooter who can average 17, 18 points per game, a transfer out of Temple. That is an amazing pickup. I think that he is for sure going to be a starter on this Arkansas team next year at the 2-guard position. Then they also picked up a point guard and Keon Minifield out of Washington, a guy who still has 3 years of eligibility remaining. He was only a freshman last season, and he can provide a little bit of playmaking on this team as well, as he did average around 10 points per game, 4 assists per game last season for the Huskies. My number 2 winner from this transfer portal offseason, we do have the West Virginia Mountaineers. Now, pushing aside the Bob Huggins news that came out last week, he has received his punishment, and we're going to move on from that ugly situation because Bob Huggins still has one of the best transfer portal classes of the offseason. He has a absolute haul of talent coming in, and that includes Kerr Kriisa, the transfer out of Arizona, a guy who can shoot the ball, play make really well, as he did average 6 assists per game last season for Arizona. That is an amazing pickup for West Virginia, and he will for sure be the starting point guard of this team. They also picked up Jesse Edwards, the transfer out of Syracuse. I think he is going to be the starting center of this team for sure, averaging 12 points per game, 10 rebounds per game, and almost 3 blocks per game last season. He is going to come in and be one of the best centers in the Big 12 Conference. They also picked up Raquan Battle, the transfer out of Montana, a guy who averaged 17 points per game last season, and I think that he is going to come off the bench for this West Virginia team and be a really solid scorer and shooter for this team. They also picked up Jose Perez, who was a pickup from last offseason but did not get his waiver signed by the NCAA, but I think that it is a plus on Bob Huggins' part to be able to keep a guy like Jose Perez, who averaged almost 20 points per game at Manhattan for a full season and another offseason, and keeping him on this team ready to use his last year of eligibility for West Virginia. Also following him from Manhattan, they got Omar Silverio, another really good player that will come off the bench for this West Virginia team. My third biggest winner of the transfer portal, we do have the Ole Miss Rebels, and ever since they hired Chris Beard, they have had a lot of players transfer out and a lot of players transfer in, and Chris Beard is really retooling this roster to try to compete in the SEC conference, a very stacked SEC conference, year one as the head coach of the Rebels. And although they did lose a lot, I believe that their gains are way better than what they have lost, so that is why they are coming in here at number 3. So they have a lot of size on this team. They picked up Musa Cias, the transfer out of Oklahoma State, who is 7'1", a former 5-star recruit. I think that he is going to be the starting center of this team. They also picked up Jamarian Sharp, the tallest player in Division I basketball, at 7'5". That is a lot of size, and I think Jamarian Sharp is actually going to come off the bench for this team, and he averaged like over 4 blocks per game last season for Western Kentucky, so that is a a big plus to have on your team off the bench. He can come in there and cause havoc. They also picked up Brandon Murray, the athletic freak from Georgetown, and before Georgetown he did play at LSU. He is a really good athlete and was one of the only pluses from that Georgetown team last year that was pretty awful. And they also picked up a point guard out of Arizona State in Austin Nunez. So this Ole Miss roster is really turning out, and it would not surprise me one bit if they are competing to be in the March Madness tournament year one under Chris Beard. Coming in here at number 4, we do have Gonzaga. Now Gonzaga have only made 2 moves this offseason, but they are 2 massive moves. They picked up a starting point guard and a starting center that will replace Drew Timme, and that of course is Graham Ike. And I was sold that he was going to either Colorado or Providence there for a while, but then Mark Few comes out of nowhere and scoops up Graham Ike. I think that this is huge. I thought Graham Ike was one of the best players in the transfer portal, and for Gonzaga to be able to pick him up and find that replacement for Drew Timme just like that, very, very impressive. They also picked up a new starting point guard in Ryan Nembhard. Now, I thought, like Graham Ike, I thought Ryan Nembhard was going to be a lock for Arizona. It seemed like he wanted to go there and play for Tommy Lloyd, but Gonzaga and Mark Few came up and scooped him up, and that is a huge get for this team. Ryan Nembhard was the starting point guard on Creighton last season and led them to the Elite 8 as a point guard. He is a really good playmaker. He can score 20 points per game on any given night, and I really like Ryan Nembhard's game. Gonzaga is getting a stud player, and his brother did play there, and he was in college, of course, as well. My 5th biggest winner of the transfer portal is the Penn State Nittany Lions, and they hired their new head coach in Mike Rose after losing Micah Shrewsbury, who was building something pretty good there at Penn State. Lost him to Notre Dame, but picked up Mike Rhodes, the former head coach of VCU, and he was able to bring in 2 transfers to follow him from VCU, and that, of course, is Ace Baldwin, who is a absolute beast. He is going to be a stud to watch in the Big Ten there for Penn State. Also, from VCU, they brought in Nick Kern, a small forward who is going to be another really solid piece to this Penn State team. Other really solid players that they brought in this offseason, they got Puff Johnson, the transfer out of North Carolina. I think that Puff Johnson can really excel on this Penn State team and against the Big Ten competition. They also picked up from Temple Zach Hicks, another small forward, so they are loading up on small forward talent here for sure. They also picked up the center out of Georgetown in Qdez Wahab. I think that he could be really solid on this Penn State team. The Penn State team that has kind of had a hole at center last season. They are losing some guys that are important, like Andrew Funk, to the transfer portal, which I think is probably one of the more underrated players still available in the transfer portal as well. But I think overall, this Penn State team has done an amazing job in the transfer portal, picking up players, especially for losing Micah Shrewsbury and getting a new guy in Mike Rhodes, who could be the future head coach for a while of this Penn State team. And my 6th biggest winner of the transfer portal period, I do have the California Golden Bears. Now, I talked about them in actually my most recent video, how good of an offseason they have been having this season, and they have gotten a lot of talent this offseason, and I think going from 3-29 last season, retooling this roster, I had to put them on this list as a winner because they have done an amazing job under their new head coach. They picked up from Texas Tech Fardass Imac and also Jalen Tyson, 2 really solid players from that team. Jalen Tyson is a guard who is 6'6", who shoots over 40% from the 3-point line. We all know what Fardass Imac is capable of. They also picked up Keontae Kennedy, the transfer out of Memphis. He could be a really solid piece to this team, definitely a starter. They picked up Mike Meadows, a transfer out of Portland, and also Jalen Cone, the transfer out of Northern Arizona, who averaged like 17 points per game last season for a pretty decent Northern Arizona team. So I think that Cal has been on a mission this offseason, and it's looking like they could be a sneaky team in the Pac-12, and I'm very excited to watch them play. But that is going to do it for my winners. Some honorable mentions that I have that also have had some pretty good off seasons but just missed out on this list. We do have St. John's, who has been picking up a lot of players under head coach Rick Pitino. They have also lost a lot of players as well, which is kind of why they just missed out on this list. Same thing here with Kansas. They have picked up some really good players in Hunter Dickinson, Arterio Morris, Nick Timberlake, but they have lost a lot of players from the transfer portal as well. A lot of their young talent. They also missed out on guys like Mackenzie Mcbako and also Harrison Ingram, so that kind of leaves a little bit of a hole at the small forward position, which is kind of why they got left out on this list. I also honorable mention Indiana. Indiana has had a pretty good transfer portal period, picking up Khalil Ware, Mackenzie Mcbako, who wasn't really a transfer, but I still consider him as an addition to the team, able to pick him up, and also Anthony Walker, Peyton Sparks. So a really good transfer portal period for Indiana, just didn't make this list. Also, my last honorable mention, the Georgia Bulldogs. Yes, we are talking about basketball, not football. They have picked up a load of super good players this offseason and maybe might try to be competitive in the SEC. I'm not sure if they will be because the SEC is actually looking really stacked, but Georgia is attempting to add transfers to this basketball team and trying to improve, but they did just missed out on this list as a winner. So those are some honorable mentions. That is going to do it for my winners video. Let me know who you think had the best transfer portal period this offseason in college basketball, and let me know if you guys are ready to see my biggest losers of the transfer portal coming out here in just a couple of days. And yeah, guys, subscribe if you guys are new. Thank you so much for watching.